Well, hello everybody. With a bit late, we are starting with our press conference on the EUROGUSS 2022. I would like to extend a warm welcome here in Schorndorf, also behind the screens. My name is Helen Verius. I've been with Nürnberg Messe for 9 years now, but for EUROGUSS, I'm actually quite new in charge, and I'm looking forward to an afternoon full of information with you. I don't want to lose too many words. We're a bit lagging behind, so this is why I would like to pass on to the lady and the two gentlemen standing next to me. And so the two gentlemen, lady will tell you everything on 20 June about the present situation and the situation in Germany and also in die casting. So I would like to present you your partners here. Ladies first, I would like to welcome Ines Pollack of the Association Semaphone, the European Foundry Equipment Suppliers Association, and Ms. Pollack is going to talk about the present market situation and the mood in the die cast situation, and will also give us an insight on actual topics such as sustainability. And the gentlemen, it's wonderful to have you here. Heidmann Schäfer, head of VTD, Association of German Foundries. He will share information and give us an insight on the present situation in foundries in Germany. In addition, actually, you will present the the die casting day. We'll talk about the new die casting competition or contest. First of all, I would like to pass on to Mr. Christopher Boss. He's head of the EUROGUSS with Nuremberg Messe, and he will give you an update on the trade fair preparation, on the highlights in the framework program, simply about the trade fair itself. So I'd like to pass on to him. Thank you very much for the introductory words, and also a warm welcome to all of you from my part. Well, finally face to face and personal talks again. I think we could see that this morning when we had lunch. We could even see that last night. I think it's actually a feeling we've all been looking for months to meet in person again, actually. So how a trade fair feels and how it feels on site, that's what we could spend last week, because we had the last trade fair for 18 months. That's the Fachpark. And I can tell you one thing. I already talked to some of you yesterday. We could see one thing. We could see bright faces and happy faces. And so, again, I would like to read myself. I'm so delighted to be able to welcome you here in person. And I'm even more delighted to be able to welcome you all in person. And from the 18th to the 20th of January at August 2021 in Nuremberg. As already announced by videos, you may all wonder, what will August 22 look like, and what will it look like compared to 2020? And I can actually calm you. There's not too much that's going to change. Our focus, after a long time of abstinence, it's almost 2 years now, it will be on on the trade fair on site and the possibility to meet in person. And I would here seize the opportunity because it's a wonderful story. There's a colleague actually who's in charge of sales at EUROGUSS, Mr. Bitke. He said, I don't know which kind of Glasgow bowl he had, but before the pandemic started in 2020, he said EUROGUSS was one of the last trade fairs before Corona, is going to be one of the first trade fairs after Corona. Back then, I think we were in the team, we all smiled and said, well, because back then we thought that everything would be over in the summer, but he seems to have been right. And I think we are all that much happier here in the entire community. We are all looking forward to the August 2022, and we as Nürnberg Messe will give the industry the opportunity to meet and exchange ideas in person in a safe setting, true to the Nürnberg Messe motto, personal but safe. But what does it look like in concrete terms? So in 2022, again, we will actually cover 4 halls. Currently, just under 90% of the available space has been allocated. there will be an extensive supporting program again with the with the conference of die casting. It's not going to be a hybrid event, but we will focus above all on the product on site. Let us also look at the figures first, without going too much into the details. For us, the figures are very positive. Now, with regards to the space, we are above the EUROGUSS 2018. But what is really very positive, more than 60 companies have registered new for EUROGUSS, which then had never participated in EUROGUSS. And particularly, there's one thing to take into consideration in 2020. The foundry industry has not just has always been in a turbulent phase, not just due to coronavirus. And it's wonderful to see that a lot of people are extending their spaces or come back with a new owner. And that means that the die casters continue to represent the largest group of exhibitors with roughly 40%. And in addition to that, the foundry suppliers continue to be a very important component for EUROGUSS. I can't actually tell you too much new here as compared to 2020. The largest share comes from tool and mold making and die casting machinery and equipment sector, and the casting post-treatment alloy producers. But having a look at the map of exhibitors, EUROGUSS natural benefits from its focus on Europe in the present situation, especially. I had a look. More than 95% of the exhibitors that have registered now come from Europe. The strongest exhibitor countries are Germany and traditional Italy, Turkey, Spain, Switzerland, and Austria. Also, the joint stands from Italy, Spain, and Czech Republic will certainly contribute to this. They've already registered for EUROGUSS as compared to the last EUROGUSS. The Italian joint stand, organized by the Italian Association Amafon, is even 20% larger this time. You will have a possibility to ask questions, both here and also online. But before you ask the question, what about China? I'm going to answer it now. Many of the big brands now have branches in Europe, have people in Germany or in Europe, but we too, as Messgesellschaft, we have actually learned to find innovative solutions. And so for exhibitors who can't travel due to travel restriction, we actually have a remote booth that allows them to present their products in real life and to connect their contacts digitally. I already mentioned it. There's not too much that's going to change. And I'm very happy to see that also in 2022, although unfortunately the die casting day couldn't take place in 2021. So in 2022, it's going to take place again. After the last die casting day in 2021 that had to be cancelled. And so we'll have new topics and challenging topics for the future. There's one thing I would like to mention at this occasion is the fact that Nuremberg Messe, together with the Association of German Die Casting Foundries, have extended their cooperation in the long term. I think it's to mention we have not only extended the contract, but we also expanded our further cooperation. One topic is the expansion of the European die casting competition, which will be organized jointly by the VDD and the EUROGUSS in future. And here too, we've already heard so there's the jury meeting. We have numerous exciting subscriptions in zinc and magnesium. And the awarding of the winners will then take place during EUROGUSS 2021, and of course the parts will be presented during the trade fair. For the first time in 2020, we had the Speakers' Corner in our program, and the Speakers' Corner in Hall 9 will be somewhat larger this year. A bit larger, well, so to make sure that we have more distance. You see the space between the chairs, but we also extended the program for the first time. On Wednesday, 19th January, there will be a kind of bias day in cooperation with the German Association for Materials Management and Purchasing of Bavaria. And first, they, by Innovative, will be organizing two half-day formats on the first day of the fair on the topics additive manufacturing, Industry 4.0, and digitization, among others. State Secretary Roland Weigert from the Bavarian Ministry of Economic Affairs has also announced his participation in a discussion round and a panel discussion on Tuesday afternoon. CO2 neutrality, sustainability is not only the main topic, but this morning we already visited the foundry of fur. In our discussion, we will get interesting insights, but it's not the topic of this year's travel we had. It's a topic that will gain in importance. It's a topic that concerns all companies, so of course also the exhibitors of EUROGUSS. And so in cooperation with the chair of sustainability and of the Friedrich Alexander University of Nuremberg, we will therefore conduct a survey among all exhibitors of EUROGUSS and the status quo in terms of sustainability. And the presentation of the results, together with the further keynote lectures on this topic, will also take place at the fair. One event that I'm particularly looking forward to is the EUROGUSS Talent Award. Here, back in 2020, we already had bachelor master graduates that got the opportunity to present their master's thesis and win attractive prizes. And compared to the last event, this time there will be also an audience award this time. So not only the jury will award a prize, but also you, the visitors, will have the opportunity to determine the winner with your vote. Well, so our four joints will continue to offer tried and tested products, research, the science for universities, colleges and research institutions, specialty on service technology, pavilion additive manufacturing, in the joint stand of young innovative companies. For all joint stands, we have renowned companies registered, the advantage being that participation is also possible at short notice. As I already said in the beginning, and a lot of other press releases, especially of trade fair companies, you can read about new hybrid concepts. But as I said earlier, we've actually decided against a hybrid event, but also talking to the industry again, because we are sure, after consulting with the industry, and especially in our stormy times, we need the personal contact, the personal customer relationship. And EUROGUSS in 2022, as a trade fair for die casters, will also offer the opportunity to discuss opportunities, trends, and challenges of the industry in person, face to face. So I would like to invite all of you to take this opportunity to come to Nuremberg from the 18th to the 20th of January. And I'm sure, just to come to an end, that you will have lots of bright faces and positive stories and impressions. And because it's especially the personal chance encounters that make an event, and no digital format can do that. At this point, I would like to thank you very much. And so that's the information I want to share with you on the EUROGUSS 2022. Thank you very much, Christopher Boss. And I would like to pass on to Mr. Fischer now. Thank you very much. Me too. I would like to extend a warm welcome on behalf of the Association of German Foundries and EUROGUSS. And I would like to give you some information about the situation in EUROGUSS, in die casting. The situation in die casting revealed at the EUROGUSS 2020, I would say, carefully optimistic. We remember that the die casting industry basically actually gets its 80% actually gets its orders from the automotive industry, and they have the problem. They had actually their problem in 2019 prior to the coronavirus crisis. So actually, it was really blessed with a good mood, but in 2020. But after the EUROGUSS 2020, it was shaken by the COVID-19 pandemic with its still existing rejections and denials. In addition, the requirements to the political operation is growing understandable framework conditions for the future, for the essential aspects of sustainability. We need fair conditions across the and beyond the German borders. That's really essential, important, but one after the other. Let us look back. Corona crisis in 2020 on all markets actually left its traces. The motor industry, the most important buyers of die-cast industry had the lowest volume since 24 for 45 years with a minus of 24%. So the buyers in machine building were not that hardly high hit, but with minus 49% had the strongest decrease in production since the financial crisis in 2008 and 9. Altogether, the German non-dying casting industries with zero point 0.8 ton had roughly 25% tons less in production than they had in 2019. That hit the reserves of the die casting industry minus 25% was extreme was a lot. The production in aluminum foundries shrank with 0.7 million tons by 24%. And so magnesium alloys in 2020 in the reporting period was 10% lower than in 2019. The production of components from zinc alloys went back by 13%. The industry again was really burdened up to their limits. But what about the status quo this year? And the ongoing year, until July this year, the foundries within the dominating aluminum die casting could actually see a recovery with a plus of 35% as compared to the Corona year 2020. Positive stress after it was extremely negative in 2020. So over time was necessary. That's not true for materials. The figures available to the association shows that zinc shows a minus of 11% in the second year, below the production values of 2019. With magnesium, we have a similar situation. In the first two quarters, 2021, the incoming orders seem to be improving by the end of the year. The crisis seemed to have been banned. However, the positive image in the meantime could no longer confirm itself. The dramatic difficulty with which the entire foundry industry is presently fighting also reflect to the die casting industry. That means bottleneck in materials and entailing significant price increases of the raw materials and equipment and drastically increasing energy costs. The material prices are increasing with some materials by factors, not by two-digit percentages. And nevertheless, in part, you won't get any confirmation of supplies. That's really dramatic. What's going on right now? Especially die casting is suffering of the semiconductor crisis. The automotive manufacturers reduce their production of electronic components and do no longer buy the components from the die casting industry. Most of you may have heard Opel is actually closing its factory by the end of the year, not just 1 or 2 months, but until the end of the year. That has dramatic consequences for us as as foundries. Goods that are ready for collection are simply not collected. So this combination of raw materials, energy, and actually sales are a challenge not preceded in the foundry industry, in the die casting industry. What about the outlook? The challenges I've mentioned are actually difficulties with regards to the corona crisis, partly also due to the international supply chains and the very complex logistics, but also the economic situation, which actually has given rise to energy problems, for instance, in China. For the European side, the location, especially for Germany, the Green Deal of the EU will become an additional challenge. The EU is really willing to assert climate neutrality by 2025. Germany, according to the present situation, wants to have it before 2024. Lightweight Construction is an important companion to reach these goals. These ambition goals, however, are also politics, which in 2020 and 2021 has had to fight a lot with overcoming the corona crisis. But with regards to 2022, the pandemic will no longer play an important role. After the elections of the Bundestag on the 22nd and the present formation of the government, the foundry industry relies on the new administration, concentrating on the industrial production situations, improving and focusing on them, and focusing also on the industrial politics for the SMEs. So still unsatisfactory or uncompletely resolved has been the topic of carbon leakage regulation. In Europe and worldwide, we need the same preconditions. Okay, on the 28th of July, there was a carbon leakage regulation which came into effect. So light metal and various foundries and multi-colors are in the listed were really not mentioned in these industries. The die casting needs clear and anticipatory regulation. Here, the industry is expecting an understanding for the fact that high energy prices and ambitious climatic goals will also incur costs and investments for the industry, which it can't make on its own. After a competitive industrial circle, so we need to have some support for climate neutrality. The industry, and I want to be very clear, supports these goals. This morning, when visiting Measures First, we could see that it's not since yesterday. So the industry has been trying to save energy, not just since yesterday, and try to produce it in a very economic way. Recycling is not a fashionable word, but has been the practical life for decades. So waste seems to be negative, but it's not. That's recycling. And our industry is really able to do that with recycling. But we need to have fair conditions all over Europe, all over the world. This is where politics comes in. You can see, ladies and gentlemen, there are lots of exciting topics. And afterwards, for our discussion, lots of exciting topics for exchanging views and lots of good reasons for a visit to EUROGUSS. Thank you very much. Yeah, dear Mr. Fischer, thank you very much for, I would say, for this play. And I would like to request Ms. Polak to share her views. Thank you very much, Ms. Verius. Well, I would also like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm also very happy to have one of the first face-to-face meetings. I can also attend and also see this extended group in this virtual room. I actually have come along with a couple of charts. I would like to talk about available data on the foundry industry. I represent SEMAFORM, the European Association of Foundries, and this secretariat in metallurgy. Now, let's have a look at the ranking, and let's look back at 2020 and the development of the export business from the European die casting machinery producers. It's not surprising that the pandemic-related decrease has also manifested itself all over the world. The trade with die casting machines decreased by 25% last year, which total up to 651 million euros in international trade. Now, by the way, the statistics are based on 84, 85, 30, so some other foundries are included as well, just for completeness sake. I would also like to give a comparison to 29 because back then we had a very strong decrease for the trade in this industry, even stronger than last year, by almost 40%. Back then, the international trade had decreased by that much, and that was the only different year. Since 25, if you look at the entire timeline in which the international export trade fell below 700 million euro, back then even below 500 million euro, just to complete that. The semaphore producer countries show an average as Japan and the US, a decrease of 30% measured by the previous years. And among the 5 big exporting countries, only China had no significant decrease. The export just leveled off. Measured by the absolute export value, Japan 2020 is actually on top of the ranking, followed by semaphore country, Italy. So some background information, some highlights. In 2020, Japan, as compared to the previous year, had exported a lot less to China and Vietnam. In China, and its exports to Morocco, Indonesia, and Malaysia could increase. Also for Germany and Italy, there were positive developments as well, with the deliveries to the US and to some European markets, to Austria, Spain, Sweden, from Germany, for instance, as well as to the United Kingdom from Italy. Italy, in this ranking, with roughly minus 20%, had the least decline, and a growth could be seen. In addition to the Bulgarian exports, also Spanish exports on a lower level, so by 17%. In the next chart, we can see that in the course of the decreasing exports in the year of crisis 2020, the international market shares of the region and countries have actually shifted a bit. The semaphore producers from Europe for last year reached a share of 38% of the international trade. In the die casting machines, 41% the year before, at least on the lower level, of course. And the trade industry from Japan represents roughly below 1/4 of the entire trade, and the imports from China with 19% actually account for almost 1/5 of the international trade in foundry and die casting machinery. And as a view from the perspective of the semaphore manufacturers, the pandemic-related declines have actually reflected in have shown their effects in Europe, which can be seen in the petrol-colored part of this pie chart. The share of the exports into EU and in the 27 markets was still 41%. Last year, these were only 31% of the entire exports of the semaphore countries. The exports into the United Kingdom here are shown in other European markets. However, if you take the absolute figures and if you consider the exports of semaphore producers into the US 27 plus UK, then the exports in 2020 declined by 27% to end up at a bit below 100 million euros towards North America. From the semaphore countries, we had increases in the same amount, exactly by 38%, which amounts to a total of 47 million euros. And this is an upward trend which actually continued from 2019. The share, which was 22% in Japanese destination, actually is due to lower exports to India and China. To India, they even decreased by 3/4 to but to China, much less, one-third less. Well, and also from our side, the outlook to this year and next year, from today's perspective, is really encouraging the change towards positive export values this year should well, if this trend continues from a perspective of Semaphore should work out. So in the case of the German exports, this has already happened, was the middle of the year, because we have a plus of 11% of the exports, and the present production figures for the second quarter from Germany are always positive and go towards this direction. The order situation, and we can see that according to when looking at the German indicators, has improved considerably for a couple of months in the first half. For Semaphore countries, they have undergone a positive developments, especially in the trade with North and Central America, US and Mexico, and with some European markets such as Hungary and Spain. And as Mr. Fischer already clearly explained, also from our perspective, we can say that what we do not lack are the challenges, but they also involve opportunities, and these opportunities can be lifted. This morning, we had an opportunity to visit Mrs. Föhl, where we could convince ourselves that machinery and equipment make an important contribution to reach the climate targets, so the decarbonization. For many years in our area, in our field, the customer requirements in terms of reducing emissions, material and energy efficiency determine the course for the further development of the equipment and also the services to be provided, together with the customers and the partners. The machine manufacturers contribute more than ever before as an enabler to the climate-conscious designers of this supply chain. Steadily growing value also have the database services. Against this background, the development of the OPCUA companion specifications is actually top speed and high speed. And in the meantime, another initiative has been started to work out the communication interfaces across all manufacturers for networking in these melting furnaces. At the same time, on the part of the machine builders, the direction is prepared in order to reach the individual climate footprint and to reduce that further on. And for all parties involved, we can say, and I would like to repeat what my so it's actually important to manage the potentials and to implement the requirements for the climate neutral requirements. These are the political requirements are required because they can help the operators of the machinery and can offer security for the investments. And so I would like to finish my little view I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much for your attention. Yes, I would also like to express my sincere thanks for the experts for this abundance of input. Now it is up to you, also behind the screens. You can also always enter your questions. If you have questions, you're welcome to ask them to the experts here. Do you have any experts? I have a question. Microphone. I need a microphone, sorry. Without microphone, I can't translate. Herr Fischer, you were talking about the difficult order situation and the economic situation of the automotive industry. Ms. Borlaug, you say that the order situation for the die casting machines is improving. How does that match in the short and the medium run? I could think now that actually the situation on the machinery market may still be difficult for the time being. Well, in my view, from die casting, it's a year of contradiction, which means we live between overtime and short work. there is a demand, especially in vehicles, but there are not sufficient components. The supply chains are gone. Once the components are there, we have to work overtime. And if there are no components from one day to the next one, we need to have the short work. And so the question arises, how do supply chains work in future? If things work out, things will be very positive. If semiconductors are missing, but it's not just semiconductors, it's really surprising to see how multifarious these problems are. Containers are missing. So ships, transporters, semiconductors, raw materials are missing, ranging from plastics through light-weight metals to up to steel. It's really multifaceted. Once they're missing, then the situation is really bad. So for the time being, nobody can really anticipate where we're going to. It's very, very difficult. Does that answer your question? Maybe may I complete one thing? Complete it. And we actually consider from the European cross-section, from these various 7 countries, we look at the destination of the world trade. We look at the statistics, and this is where it distributes with a more optimistic outlook, of course. If the components are available, we will have the orders. That's a short term and medium term, but there are issues such as the semiconductors. What people don't know exactly is that a problem which can be solved by Christmas or by Christmas next year. So the Tier X supplies are required, and with the raw materials, we see a very difficult situation. For instance, for magnesium, which comes from 90% of which comes from China, with an impact on aluminum, with an impact on steel as well. If this situation does not change, there will be a fundamental problem, a critical situation. If it improves with regards to the waiting demand, actually, things will be very positive. But one thing should be taken into consideration, that's the low rate from the previous years. If we look at the figures, of course. Does that answer your question? One question to Ines Pollack and one question to Hartmut Fischer. Ladies first, with the presentation of your exports from Europe, I realized that in 2020, America increased significantly in spite of Corona. So I remember that America, with Corona, was hit above average. What was different about that? How can we interpret this figure? I can't tell you immediately. I can't give you an answer immediately. I think this is due to the progressing situation of the pandemic. But obviously things seem to have worked differently. In America, the investment climate, obviously, is it different over there? Or did they not use coronavirus as a kind of, let's say, cloak disguise for economic weakness? I will come back to you to answer this question. Which answer don't you want to get? Which question don't you want to get an answer for from my part? Micro. Of course, in Europe, there's one thing we should see after 2019, after this recession in the automotive industry and in mechanical engineering. 2020, we had the pandemic, and we should not forget that China is the one that took the recovery was the quickest to recover. They actually managed this growth quite quickly, and those are scheduled things, for instance, the ICs in all these circles. But then who came with bigger growth rates? The two of them had quite a good growth, and then they actually invested because they also were sold to the US, and they also scheduled into a supply chain which had actually fallen. And now, in Europe, with our growth rates, we are number 3. And of course, the mountain we have in front of us, we actually could build on that for a long time. So the question you asked, it was really justified, what the colleague said. The founders, they see the amount of them lying before them, electromobility, not just for the car. There's also the bike and other things as well. Such things, and also changes in the interior. Also in the consumer section, there are lots of parts, also ICs, and all these want to produce. There is a demand. You will get the cars not before 12 months. You see this mountain people are working on, and the ones who see that they need some time, or and they need something and have capital, they invest just hoping to get orders. But the machines also it takes 7, 8, 9 months to get to make them. So one thing does not exclude the other thing. Thanks a lot. Question to Mr. Fischer. You say that that's the present situation of the contradictory problematics which we have in the die casting. If we say that one of these problems can be minimized, would it be possible to say that, well, let's at least talk about the drives, or let's actually go to Brussels to get more planning security for die casters? I mean, we still have a discussion which is not sure about the direction. So electromobility can't actually be stopped. That's one thing which is sure, but nobody really expenses anything else about that. And I think that die casting also suffers from that. So wouldn't there be a possibility to build some solidarity, to start some campaign saying, well, not the German politics alone, but the European politics need to find a common solution, not as Dr. Unidi said, as Europe, just to lose the contact, or just to be number 3. And if something like this is desired, what you require from the association, from the politics, from the media to provide support, Sharon, it will really help us if we have actually get more planning security. And for the time being, in the motor industry, they are going various directions. So it's the motor industry, and there's us as suppliers. We actually want to be open for technologies which in this form cannot be seen, in my personal view. That would help us a lot. We should be more open just to ensure planning reliability. And the next point for us, as the die casters, as mentioned before, is a level playing field, so level playing for everybody. That means that we should not actually be blessed with disadvantages due to sustainability. We could see that. That's fair, but there are also lots of other family-run businesses which are already working in this direction. One of them express it in a loud voice, the others in a low voice. But the companies are willing to invest to this effect. This will not be possible in the long run if others don't do that. So here we need the same framework conditions in the medium and in the long term. Otherwise, we may get the components we could see today from abroad, but not at better CO2 conditions. This shouldn't be our solutions. The factories we have in Germany are well prepared, are well structured, and at this point, they already work on an energy efficient level, as we could see this morning. But this should be valid. This should apply for everybody. Does that answer your question? I understand that. So this actually principle of equality, and I think the German politicians should be, we should provide support and push them just to make sure they follow this direction. We should be very eager to do that. Yes, and presently, this is really very important for raw material, magnesium, with effects on aluminum and with the exception of zinc. And we need solutions at short notice. And Belarus works very close with Wirtschaftsassociation Metalle, and so we will actually approach them. Jolang, also this association will actually address them to get some clearer ideas. The unreliability we have with regards to raw material is not good for anybody. Are there any other questions? From the stream, I can't see any questions either. Then one short information from my part. Our press conference contents can also be found digitally in our digital press folder. You have the link in your press folder at the interlocutor sheet. And for the digital participants, shortly before the press conference, you got an email from us, which also shows the link. Then I would just like to point out, so we actually have the live stream German and English language, and after processing time, as of now, next week, it will be available in our newsroom. Then I would like to end the press conference. Right now, we have a short coffee break on site, and at 3:15 we will continue with our exciting discussion, reduce, compensate, invest, so the sustainability and foundry industry. And I would be looking forward to having you all with me again. Thanks a lot.